A Russian fighter pilot caught on camera banging into an American drone. U.S. presidential hopefuls give their stance on the war in Ukraine, where Poland is set to send MiGs in the coming days, and North Korea continues their unprovoked assault on the East Sea. Overall, a pretty normal week. But first, a big thank you to all the channel members, to everyone with one of those fancy little stars by their name in the comment section. It really means a lot to have your support. So the big headline over the last few days was that a U.S. Reaper drone crashed into the Black Sea. Now, the U.S. was pretty quick to release that footage, so let's have a look. What you're seeing here is a Russian Su-27 dumping fuel on the drone, which the U.S. called environmentally unsound. Not exactly a line for the ages, but got to get those jabs in when you can, right? Problem arises here when a second jet comes in trying to do the same thing, but they get a little too close, can't pull up in time, and boom. Camera goes out for a bit, and when it comes back online, we can see the damaged propeller from the impact, a fault which forced the drone to crash into the Black Sea. Now, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, they say the drone was approaching airspace they consider off limits, which is not to be confused with international airspace as defined by the United Nations. So as a response, Russia says that they sent up their jets to intercept when the drone conducted a sharp maneuver, forcing it into uncontrollable flight that resulted in a crash. Kind of feels like they left some details out, but neither here nor there. Now, why on earth does the United States have a drone over the Black Sea? I mean, NATO aircraft in Russia's backyard seems risky, right? So with a quick look at the map, we can see that the Black Sea is bordered on the south and west by NATO members Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania. In fact, NATO members make up 1,908 miles of Black Sea coastline to Russia's 800 miles and Ukraine's 2,783. And given that, the largest war in the European continent in recent history is being waged on the opposite shore, not having aircraft over the Black Sea would be bordering on reckless and irresponsible by NATO. I've heard a lot of commentary that this was intentional, a smart move by the Russians to capture the drone intact, which is kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. First off, the Su-27 likely suffered some sort of damage careening into a 5,000-pound machine flying at 300 miles an hour. Second, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, said there really wasn't much to recover. Falling from upwards of 50,000 feet, the drone likely broke apart upon hitting the water, and that area of the Black Sea is between 3,000 and 4,000 feet deep. That's not a crazy depth to recover something, but it does take a little bit more than just a few divers, and it has yet to be seen if Russia has the resources or the capabilities in the Black Sea to even pull that off. Shifting back to the domestic front, we've got some insight as to how Republican 2024 presidential hopefuls view the war in Ukraine, and it was kind of a mixed bag, and a few of these answers really kicked off some fireworks. So it was a series of questions put out by Tucker Carlson of Fox News. A handful of candidates responded with how they would handle the war in Ukraine should they be elected. Starting with former President Trump, his position is generally that he can resolve the issue after sitting down with Zelensky and Putin together to sort out some sort of peace deal. He was also pretty adamant that Europe needs to pick up on the military aid and that the U.S. should not be providing the bulk of assistance. Nothing really new here, but I gotta say, if somebody legitimately has the answer to end this war and is just sitting on it, that's not good. Next up, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis really pissed off some folks when he referred to the war as a, quote, territorial dispute between Russia and Ukraine. He was accused of downplaying what has essentially spiraled into the largest war in the European continent in 80 years, so maybe not the best choice of words from Mr. DeSantis. He did go on to take a pretty hard stance, saying that F-16s and long-range missiles should be off the table and that the overall objective here should be peace. And I can hear someone saying, of course peace should be the overall objective. Not so quick. Former Vice President Mike Pence came out a little more hawkish than anyone, saying that, quote, we will support those who fight our enemies on their shores so we do not have to fight them ourselves. Adding that if Putin is not stopped and the sovereign nation of Ukraine is not restored quickly, he will continue to move toward our NATO allies, and America would then be called upon to send our own. That sort of harkens back to the 1939 appeasement of Hitler argument that I think gets a little overplayed. I mean, not everything is comparable to World War II. And personally, I'm not convinced that Putin even has the means right now to press on with any sort of land grab beyond Ukraine. It's just kind of hard to see Russia wanting to take on NATO after how this last year in Ukraine has played out. But I'll link the full answers in the description below so you can read them in detail if interested. Now, on the aid to Ukraine front, Poland announced that they're handing over 12 MiG-29 fighter jets, with the first 4 set to be delivered in the coming days. Big question, I'm sure, here on everyone's mind. Yes, these do come standard with the capability to crash into Russian drones and then simultaneously claim they had nothing to do with it, but also it was expert piloting even after the footage comes out. So just, be on the lookout for that. On another note, I don't think that this will clear the path for the United States to send F-16s to Ukraine. In the past, we've seen this deal where one country steps forward with some sort of new equipment, and that opens the door for everyone else. Sort of like nobody wants to be the first to make a big move, but once that line is crossed and Russia doesn't really respond, others come forward. That's already happened a little bit. A day after Poland promised MiGs, Slovakia jumped in as well, offering to send their operational jets, a number that I haven't yet seen, and push the non-operational jets forward to Ukraine to be used for parts. Now, I'm sure Ukraine is happy to backfill some of the losses their air force has suffered over the last year, and I don't want to blow past that, but in terms of use, we probably won't hear an awful lot about these new MiGs on the battlefield. It's just the surface-to-air threat is so significant near the front that tactical air support has been pretty limited. Russia has been using aircraft mostly at night around Bakhmut, but really it's not much when compared with the volume of rocket and artillery fire. So I'd expect that the MiGs are used in some sort of a defensive role, screening Ukrainian airspace, maybe giving Russian aircraft one more thing to worry about when considering any sort of aerial attack. And finally, in what is becoming a weekly occurrence, Kim Jong-un fired even more missiles into the East Sea between North Korea and Japan. On Thursday, March 16th, it appears to have been the Hwasong-17 ICBM, which is the second ICBM launch so far this year and comes after North Korea fired cruise missiles from a submarine and short-range ballistic missiles both earlier this week. This launch highlighted their newest, most advanced ICBM, which is believed to be capable of ranging any site in the United States. So, that's good. There's been an argument recently that North Korea is not very happy with the status of Putin's war in Ukraine. The idea here is that with the increased U.S. focus on Russia, North Korea kind of moves down the list of U.S. priorities. So the whole Kim Jong-un is just doing this to try to get attention might actually have some validity here. Either way, every single one of these launches does risk escalation. The challenge is that North Korea doesn't announce these, they just happen. So when a launch is detected, South Korea, Japan, and the United States have to scramble to figure out if it's a test or an actual attack. I think we've kind of molded ourselves into this false sense of security with the idea that, of course an attack wouldn't happen. And I hope so, but we have to take every one of these launches seriously. So every single time there's a risk that the missile doesn't stay on a safe trajectory and that any other country jumps in and responds prematurely. We tend to laugh these launches off, but each one is an event that could legitimately lead to war. I know someone's going to say that it's just the United States provoking North Korea, but it's kind of this chicken or the egg problem. The U.S. and our allies continue training on and around the Korean Peninsula because North Korea keeps making threats. North Korea keeps making threats because they view the exercises as a practice run for a U.S.-led invasion of their country. So around and around we go. But that's it. That's all I got. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'll see y'all next time.